It's Speaking with Gravity, and I am Curvin.
And I'm Ty.
We're the hosts of this podcast, this mental health podcast, talking about how everything affects everything. You see, when you sit with a therapist, the conversation is different. With every episode, our goal is to have a conversation that's going to make you think, make you feel, make you do what is best for you. We're therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a podcast. And today, the title, Sorry, Not Sorry, is you. We're talking about, I guess, basically.
Amaretta the Great.
Yeah. Shout out to Amaretta. It's more along the lines of the thought process behind this is everything isn't a diagnosis. Everything, a lot of times these words are being thrown out here. That's related to mental health, that's related to mental illness. And we just throw them out casually, and they don't always apply. So, and then we stand flat-footed on it. Like, individuals will stand flat-footed on it. The Twitter discussion, we do a Twitter discussion all the time. And Lady Lorraine put this out here. I'm crying at y'all not knowing the correct definition of trauma bonding. It is not when you and another bond over shared trauma. So from what I looked at, she was not a therapist, but she put this out here. And I'm not an expert on trauma, but I even thought that her statement was a bit incorrect. And man, she got a lot of tweets and retweets and people coming at her, and she going back and forth at them. But I'm gonna read it again. I'm crying at y'all not knowing the correct definition of trauma bonding. It is not when you and another bond over shared trauma. And I don't know exactly what she was trying to say, but you do bond over shared trauma. It doesn't have to be shared in the same exact experience. So, for instance, if me and Todd doing this podcast right now, somebody come and stick us up, we don't have to be in this shared experience of somebody trying to stick us up. It could be that she was involved in a stick up at some point in her life, and I was involved at a stick up point in my life, and so we have that. And it don't have to necessarily be the same exact thing. It can just be I went through this trauma at this point, and you went through that trauma at that point. Our other host, the third party, is not here. She wasn't able to make it on today. But she, we have a group text and we dialogue back and forth. But she put this out here when we were talking about it, that trauma bonding is emotional or mental connection to a person based on their shared or similar experience, with limited to no connection and values on beliefs outside of that traumatic experience. That's the go a step further. It goes beyond just trauma bonding goes beyond just having that connection for the trauma. But when you really look at it, we don't know if we agree on our other morals and values. But we got this one thing that connect us. That's why it's called a bond. And then you put the trauma in that y'all experience trauma. That's why it's called a trauma bond. Did you have anything to add to that? I think I put a lot out there. But we just have to be careful. We literally have to be careful what we put out into the atmosphere. When we get ready to do this podcast, we go over our notes. We want to make sure that we're not saying anything incorrect. And sometimes we still might say something incorrect. I stand to be corrected if I put that out there and that was wrong. I sure hope it isn't wrong. But I stand to be corrected. But from my experience, it's just it is what it is when it comes down to that. Give us the QD of the hour.
So the QD of the hour is another version of fun facts, information for you to be able to give your family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, or church members. The gaslighting term is derived from the title of a 1938 British play called Gaslight. In the play, a deceitful husband drives his wife to near insanity by convincing her that she is mistaken on various elements of recollection within her memory.
I did not know that before I looked that up.
I did not either.
I didn't know where the term came from, but the fact that it came from a play, a little bit of part of me want to go look at the play, just a little bit. But it's 1938, so
In British.
the things that's going on in 1938, I don't know if I can relate to or if I even be interested in. I was looking at a podcast last night. I mean, not a podcast, a documentary on Bill Cosby, and it's on Showtime. It's pretty good, but it was talking about some things that he had did or some things that he had said in the 1960s, and he put out an album like from 60 to like 68, 69, like one a year.
Oh, I did not know that.
And was getting Grammys and stuff for him.
Bill Cosby?
Bill, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have listened to some of his stand up, but the stand up that I've listened to was like early 80s. I ain't listened to none of the stuff from the 60s, but they was playing some of it, and I was like, this is not funny. Like, because I couldn't connect with it. It was in the 60s, so I feel like that would be the same thing with his 1938 play. You just can't connect with, once you go back so far, you just can't connect with it because they were at a different level. I hate to say that we're more advanced. We're more advanced because we just, stuff has been added to the world since that time. So, going into sorry, not sorry, why do we pick that topic? Like, what is this episode about, right? So you think he's a narcissist, but is he really? Oftentimes certain terms become buzzwords that we throw around when we see or feel just one or two of the symptoms associated with it. Just think about that. Like, as a therapist, we have a whole list of criteria that we're going through before we give a diagnosis. It's not just that we wake up and say, oh, okay, you feel this way. Okay, this is the diagnosis we're going to give you. No, there's a criteria that needs to be met. And sometimes parts of that criteria get highlighted in the media, and then people will take that part that's highlighted and say, oh, this person is this. But truth be told, not everyone is what you think. Today, as clinicians, we are looking to challenge your thoughts and misconceptions about various diagnoses and terms heard around the globe. So I said it already, narcissism, right? Oh. I hear that so often now. I think people have a tendency to identify with certain aspects of narcissism. I can't remember who said it recently. They were talking about athletics, and they were talking about just being a famous actress or actor. You got to have a bit of narcissism just to make it to that level. If you look at going back to that Kanye documentary, you really got to believe in yourself. You got to have this grandiose idea that I can do this. I'm 5'7". I love basketball. I'm 5'7". And at the time that I was in high school, I was probably about maybe 110. So to think that I can make it to the NBA, if I did make it to the NBA, in order to make it, I would have had that thought of I can make it even at 5'7". Even at 110 pounds, I can go out here and compete with people who are 6'7", 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, 280 pounds, and I'm only 110. I would have had to have that thought process, and that's a bit of part of that could fall up under that, to have such an ideal like that. But what we don't consider is empathy. Typically when we talk about narcissism, people like that don't have empathy. And they have a sense of entitlement. You got all of these things. There's so much behind narcissism. they only affiliate with people who are associated with the things that they trying to accomplish. You know, we were talking about in another episode about kind of surrounding yourself with people that's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But that don't mean isolating yourself from the people who don't necessarily, if you put them in your path, you don't know if they're going to help you get there or not. But when you're talking about narcissism, that means, all right, if you ain't working for me, I can't be a part of you, which is crazy. So it goes beyond just being super confident. It goes way beyond that when we're talking about our narcissism. What are your thoughts on? Do it irk you when you hear that word? Oh, he's a narcissist. He's narcissistic.
It does, because I think oftentimes people don't understand, again, the context of the word, the diagnosis, it being associated with personality disorders. Yeah, I really don't say much other than I don't think this person has been clinically diagnosed.
Yeah.
So they may demonstrate or exhibit certain traits that you deem fall under the diagnosis of narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder.
Hey, any of your friends therapists or social workers? That like not people you've met because you was in the field, but like
not clinically though. They're social workers. A few are clinical. Yeah.
Are they into like? Do they understand? Yeah.
I believe on a surface level, I can't really say for sure given their line of work, they're in education. But I think their counseling skills still come into play. But actually clinically diagnosing people, I'm not sure.
So, do your friends put you on Front Street? You're going to shine on your friends right now. Do they ever be like, hey, girl, such and such and such and such, this person is this, ain't it?
Not really. Out of the group of friends that I speak with on a day-to-day basis,
we're not going to ask you to elaborate on that.
Really, they don't. I mean, and if for whatever reason that comes up, I may say, well, it may be symptoms related to depression or bipolar disorder. Then I would say, well, it may be bipolar 1 or bipolar 2. Again, there are different ones. But I highly doubt it, but maybe just some symptoms related to it because, again, oftentimes who doesn't have what's deemed as grandiose thoughts or dreams, you know? I think that's something, again, depending on that doesn't matter. Yeah. No, they don't really.
I have gotten hit in the mouth a couple of times with somebody asking me about this, that, and the third and relating it to a diagnosis. And the times that I have been asked that, it has been in a one-on-one situation, so that's a whole lot better. But I have also been in situations where you hear somebody diagnosing somebody, and you're like, nah, I don't really think that goes together. But I also don't always correct people, because it's not my like if they just talking. They just talking, right. And I'm not on the clock. I'm not in therapy sessions. So that, you know what, I'm just let that one pass. I'm gonna let you have that one. If that's what you believe, that's what you believe. You want to know the truth, you can come at me at a later date, a later time. But right now, we're gonna sit up here and continue to have this good time.
I'm with you on it because I'm learning. Oftentimes, I feel I've offered unsolicited advice or suggestions when it wasn't asked or requested or even warranted. You know, maybe sometimes people just want you to listen. So kind of now I take that approach. They ain't directly asking me, you know, or if they're not even just directly talking to me outside of what I just said, well, they may have symptoms related. I'm not saying much of anything else because I'm not in that role. And again, you didn't ask the direct question. And
I've been
but I educate
if given the opportunity, right? Yeah. And I've been doing this for a while, but when I was dating, I didn't look at people like, oh, this girl is possibly this or this girl is possibly that. Like, I'm dating that person. I'm not trying to find a diagnosis. And we've gotten to a point as a society that we so quick to put a diagnosis on somebody. Like, not just let this person live, not just enjoy the experience that you have with them, but boom, like I was listening to another podcast. It was a few years back, and it was actually a therapist, but she was talking about how she was dating a guy years ago before she became a therapist, and she met the guy. They had good conversation. There was dialogue between each other, and then they finally had a date. Right? They had a date. The date went good, so they set up for a second date. They go to the second date. He says he's going to cook for her. Come over to his house. Nice, right? Nice setup. She goes over to the house, and I'm paraphrasing here. You have to go listen to her podcast. I have to find it. But she goes to the house. She gets to the house. He has no food cooked, nothing cooked. And he gets there and was like, hey, what do you want to do? And she was like, you said you was going to cook?
Right.
And he was like, yeah, we can cook. And then he gave her an option. So they ended up on tacos, right? So then he had to go to the grocery store to get the stuff. Well, she went with him. Okay. Goes with him. They get all the stuff, get to the cash register. And he said, so how you want to do this? we splitting this. Am I paying for this? What are we doing? And she says she ends up covering it, right? Covering the bill. Okay. And they go, and she says, needless to say, pretty much that was the last date, right? But out of that whole little scenario that I gave you, the thought was, well, he's a narcissist. But she later, as you went through the episode, she later went and talked about narcissism and said that technically she couldn't diagnose him with that, right? But that's the type of thing that we're doing now. Mm-hmm. We're going that was not a good interaction. That was not cool on his part. If I am his friend and he tells me that I'm gonna talk crap to him. I'm like, yo, dude, you whack for that. But
really,
I am not thinking narcissism. Just with that, I'm just thinking you stupid. That's my thought. You just stupid in that moment. So we just have to be careful with that. Super confidence isn't narcissism, although hypersensitive. Being hypersensitive to criticism is another thing that people have that's associated with narcissism. But the stuff that I'm giving you, if you've been writing them down, like that's a combination of stuff, and that's still not even half of it, right? That's gonna lead me to say that you're narcissistic. Mm-hmm. And then gaslighting, right? Gaslighting is this really huge term now, and it's associated with narcissism. And as we talked about in the QD of the hour, right? It comes from the play with the husband driving his wife basically crazy by convincing her that what she think is real isn't real. Mm-hmm. That's really what it boils down to, right? So you're denying somebody else's reality. Now, when people gaslight, you're actually putting money in my hand. You putting food in my mouth. Why? Because you gaslighted this person. You denied their reality. And now they got to come to me to say, is this real? Is this person right? Like, that's a type of emotional abuse. Mm-hmm. Right?
I think again, and I've shared this over previous episodes, it's really important even when we're in intimate relationships or any relationship, because gaslighting can be exhibited or demonstrated in any type of relationship setting, but really knowing self, taking a moment throughout your day, multiple moments throughout your day to just regroup, recalibrate. Wait a minute. Let me process what I just said in the conversation we just had to make sure that, I didn't come off as, whatever they're stating that defines as them gaslighting. But yeah.
And the gaslight is not just relationships, right? It can be in the work setting.
Mm-hmm. Any type of.
With that work setting, if you're not careful, people will push you and push you and push you until you're overextended, until you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed. A lot of times people talk about having anxiety, right? Well, that would be pushing you towards that because you're trying to accomplish everything that this person can't accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if anybody out there listening has ever had a boss that is pushing you to do X, Y, and Z, and they can't even do it. Like that is not a good feeling as a employee to get that pressure from your boss. And it shouldn't be a good feeling from the boss to be demanding that somebody do something that they can't do.
Right. And then that leadership role.
You not a good leader. Not a good leader. But again, in gaslighting, it's often used to manipulate. That's the other thing we have to think about. Is this person trying to manipulate me or the situation? Now, I'm about to throw myself under the bus, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Or maybe I'm going to ask you to tell me, am I wrong for this?
Okay.
You're in a relationship. Okay. I'm in a relationship, not you. I'm in a relationship. I get caught doing something I ain't supposed to be doing. Whatever it is.
Okay.
All right. And then I manipulate the situation. I either try to redirect or I flat out lie or I say it's not what it seems. Is that me just defending myself or is that gaslighting? Because, we get it to the point where we put in all these words on everything that's been happening down through the years.
I don't think that's, I don't know. Wait, repeat that.
So I get caught.
You're in a relationship and you get caught doing something that you weren't supposed to do.
I'm going to go raw. I'm going to go real raw right here. I'm in a relationship. I cheat. I get caught cheating, right? I get caught cheating. And when I get caught cheating, in order to kind of get myself out, either I deflect or I say it's not what it seems. Like I'm not honest. I'm not honest.
No, I don't think that's gaslighting because
that's just me defending myself.
Right. What you're saying isn't true. You're being too insensitive. If you're saying that, then if anything, you gaslight yourself. But outside of that, no, I think that you coming up with excuses and lies to justify why you did what you did.
And when
not necessarily lies, but some type of justification.
Trying to justify, or you just get myself off the hot seat, which you really can't, but you're trying to, right? And then I think what people fail to realize is, as therapists, we are looking for patterns. An isolated incident is an isolated incident. Mm-hmm. And because it's isolated, I might not fight you on the actual word of gaslight, whether it's gaslight or it's not gaslight. I would focus on the fact that this is an isolated incident, right? And unless it's a pattern, you don't really want to put him or her into that gaslighting situation. Now you placing negative connotations on people. And that's when we talk about this book right here, Transforming Stigma. This is adding to the stigma when we just throwing words out there and not using them properly. And because we're not using them properly, now people are connecting them to a negative thing, which therefore then creates the stigma. Going on past narcissism, past gaslighting. Other thing I hate is bipolar.
Oh yeah, I hear that.
That's about now. I will admit, I have been known to say, shout out to my big brother, Rico. He is a Gemini, and I've been known to refer to him as bipolar because Geminis has been referred to as bipolar.
I am a Gemini, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you are. I keep forgetting that, but I have been known to say that. But that's not necessarily an accurate statement. I feel as if, I could be wrong on this, but I feel as if Geminis are moody. But being moody isn't being bipolar, right? when we're talking about bipolar is a mood disorder. When we're talking about a mood disorder, this is extreme moodiness. if I had to say moodiness, extreme highs, extreme lows, and then when you in those highs and you in those lows, a lot of times people want to say, "Oh well, 1 minute they this way and 1 minute they that way." It's not a minute. When you're in those extremes, you're in them, like you're in them for days, weeks, months, and it's different. Everybody's different, right? But it ain't necessarily a minute.
Right.
So and then that can be subjective. Even that can be subjective to some degree.
Which is why I guess for us as clinicians, when individuals who do present, whether they are identifying these symptoms, or if a physician has identified these symptoms and suspects some type of mood disorder, maybe related to bipolar, we speak about the frequency and duration and the impact of the extreme highs and lows, if it's caused any, what's the word that I'm looking for? Just any impairments within your day-to-day functioning, socially, occupationally, in your personal life, to where these symptoms, again, are causing some type of insignificance in your life to where you aren't able to function, or just causing disruptions in your functional patterns, in a sense. Yeah.
And when
I didn't mean to get off topic with that.
Nah, you good. And when we're talking about, this never fails. Whenever I'm recording, people want to call me. But anyway, we're talking about this mood disorder. I think sometimes too people get mood and attitude like kind of intertwined. They're not synonymous, right? Mm-hmm. Your attitude is more along the lines of how you feel about a situation or how you think about a situation, as opposed to a mood being like a state of being, right? That's a period of time. Like this is just what I feel in general. But, if you got a bad attitude, you got a bad attitude. You might have a bad attitude today and have a good attitude tomorrow. And you might flip throughout the week, but that's what it is. It's an attitude. Mm-hmm. Or you're feeling about a situation. Sometimes we have to look at this too, right? We have to look at who people are connected to. If a student has a bad attitude or is responding this year and they didn't respond like that in the previous year, it could be the teacher or teachers that they're having to deal with in the 8th grade as opposed to who they had to deal with in the 6th grade. Or the professors they're having to deal with in college as opposed to the teachers they had to deal with in high school. And even, when you go on a job, it's that same way too. They're responding to their current situation as opposed to this is really how it is. So we just, just can't be throwing around that word bipolar. And then we can keep going on and on and on, but there are a lot of disorders, mental health disorders. But one of the things, man, that irks me, maybe I shouldn't say irk me because I don't know who's watching this. But I hear people say, well, this person did this, and it's because, they might not say it's because. They'll say this person did this or did that, and they'll say they got ADHD. Or they got bipolar, or whatever they've been looking at, they would attach it, and it's like, is that an excuse? Is it an explanation? Because
okay, I was okay.
You got medication management, and you got therapy, and therapy is not going to take away that diagnosis necessarily, and medication is not going to necessarily take away that diagnosis. But it gives you coping skills. It provides an intervention for you to be able to live a life along with other people. So, you can't just say, oh, I got ADHD, so I forget everything. Okay.
I'm glad you have an understanding of part of the diagnosis that either you've been clinically diagnosed with or you believe that you have that diagnosis by you doing your own due diligence and doing your own research, which I commend you for. But again, don't give yourself labels or don't give other people labels just in general. And then two, giving these type of labels, like you said, where it's already the conversation is pretty taboo and a stigma associated with mental illness, and then with certain diagnoses alone. Yeah.
You know, when you say don't give labels, you also got to think about like using that label is providing you an excuse. When you have that excuse, now you basically saying, I'm not capable of X, Y, and Z. I don't have the ability of X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. What kind of life are you going to live when you start off by saying, I'm not capable of this, I don't have the ability of this? When I say what kind of life are you going to live, you're automatically connecting yourself to people who's going to accept that excuse. Because the ones who not going to accept it is not going to allow you to be around them. Now you're going to miss out on a good relationship, friendship, or relationship, or work situation because you chose to say, I'm not capable of this, or I'm limited in this area. I'm limited to the point that I can't do the job. Mm-hmm. Only so many people are going to accept that. You know, there's ways around. When I say ways around it, there are things that you can try to do to incorporate whatever diagnosis you have into your day-to-day life, your daily living.
Be mindful of that negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Whether one has a mental health diagnosis or not, that alone, those cognitive distortions, we continue to speak those things, we start to believe them. You know, and they may not necessarily be true, but because we created a common language around it, and then we start to internalize it, then we now start to have a belief that what I am thinking is true. And because I've now created this thought, in addition to maybe somebody else adding that I'm bipolar, I'm now engaged in just this negative thought pattern, you know, that I kind of got to work, in addition to if I seek therapy, medication management, to change.
That cognitive distortion that you just brought up, that's big. Like the way there's a statement that I love that says the most important words, something like this, I'm paraphrasing, the most important words in language is the ones you put behind I am. So I am X, Y, and Z. Well, if you got cognitive distortion, then if somebody else says you're lazy or you feel like because I have ADHD, I can't clean up, then you've distorted your mind. Like, okay, I'd never be a clean person,
so I ain't gonna clean.
So I ain't gonna clean up.
That's the excuses. Look, some people use that, like you said, as an excuse to hinder themselves. You're only handicapping yourself, and then that's where enabling comes into place. And then I think a lot too. I'm learning, and this is just what I believe to be true, because again, a thought is just a belief, but a lot of these diagnoses are rooted in unresolved trauma. And oftentimes, it's just as clinicians, through the extensive assessments that we do with the questions that we ask, we just want to ensure that what you're describing, if it fits under this criteria, it isn't anything else. So we really have to peel back the layers and really explore, like again, around that trauma topic. Is this really just deeply rooted in trauma, or are there other things? Because if it's deeply rooted in trauma, then we have to shift the treatment, you know, in a sense.
To concentrate on that trauma, process it.
Really get to the root cause of issues opposed to surface level. Because again, unresolved trauma can lead to somebody who may be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, their personality traits, or bipolar disorder, whether it's one or two, and exhibit some gaslighting behaviors, whether they have a diagnosis or not. I think I went off topic.
No, I think we also need to get, at some point, we need to get somebody in here to talk more in depth about trauma. I'm aware of it. I'm connected to it. I read on it, but I'm not an expert at it, right?
Right.
I would consider myself an expert at anxiety. maybe helping people go through transitions and stuff like that, crisis, but not necessarily trauma. So I definitely got to reach out to somebody, or a therapist, to see if they'll come in and talk more about the trauma, because that affects us in so many ways. Everything affects everything. All of these experiences that we're having, and if that experience is traumatic, you basically your brain has been recalibrated based off of that traumatic experience, right? You now have maybe a different set of moral values, or at least your morals and values have been influenced by that traumatic experience. And we definitely got to get somebody in to kind of elaborate on that a little bit more. So that's it. I ain't gonna harp on that anymore. Sorry, not sorry. It's you. It's not us. It's you and your cognitive distortions. But subscribe to Speaking with Gravity on Facebook and Instagram. We'll make it easy for you. We'll put it in the notes. For all your event needs, check out 6-1 Event Rentals. Their link would be in the show notes as well. If you need a resume updated or prep for an interview, we're gonna have the contact information for D in the show notes. Gravity Counsel Group provides a BIPOC wellness group every fourth Monday, where we have a monthly meeting and talking to BIPOC men, helping to validate, educate, and support each other. Shout out to Mr. Winston for holding down the audio and visual productions. Check him out on winstonjstewart.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen. You could be doing anything right now, but you chose to listen to us, and we appreciate that. Remember, we're therapists, but this isn't therapy. It's a podcast.